Thank you, Jason, for the introduction. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and you should be able to see my screen now. Let me know if great. Yep. Thank you so much. So welcome everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this conference. We're very pleased to be here to discuss the automated typesetting and how it can lower the cost of publishing. My name is Dione Mentis. I'm part of the COCO Foundation team, where we build open source tools for publishers, for the scholarly community, and anyone who really wants to optimize their publishing workflows. I'm joined by Christina. Christina is the project manager of Catita. Catita is a book publishing platform that makes use of automated typesetting. And Christina will give us a demo today of automatic typesetting in action. We also have with us two Page.js designers and developers, Julien and Julie, and they'll be able to answer any specific questions that come up about Page.js during this session. And finally, we're joined by Karen from the Open Education Network, who will be sharing her perspective on authoring textbooks that are open and make use of automated typesetting. And I believe we also have in the audience today the COCO founder, Adam Hyde, who is with us. COCO is part of a wider community who use and contribute to the open source tools we build. Today, we're going to be looking at automatic typesetting in the context of two tools. The one tool is Katahi, which is a journal and preprint publishing platform, and the other is Catita, a book publishing platform. Key to our discussion today is the evolution of typesetting from a workflow that inherently binds together the content, its design or style, and the format in which it reaches their audiences, to a workflow where we are able to separate these elements, to have content and style separately by using web standards. And this separation allows for many of the benefits that we'll look at today. So when I say separation, I mean literally in different files. So to give you a very basic example, here is a little snippet of text with an H2 heading and a paragraph of text in HTML. And here is a CSS file, which specifies the design rules for that content. You can see that the paragraph text should be justified. You can see, for example, that the H2 heading should be uppercase. It also has a border bottom. And over here, you can see in the PDF that those design rules are applied. This is completely different to traditional book publishing systems where, for example, if you think about InDesign or any other desktop publishing system, the design and content are inherently together. So this separation is one of the main reasons why we're able to have cost savings. And some of those cost-saving themes are on the screen. For example, we're able to have streamlined production workflows. So in a system that has content and design separated, you can have designers and your production team, editors and authors working alongside each other at the same time. You can also have editors making corrections to the content without having to ask the typesetter to redo it and send back files, for example. You can reuse the design and you can change it up and use it in different ways. So, for example, you wouldn't necessarily need to start a design from scratch, and you could reuse a design for multiple books in a series. Of course, when you have content in HTML, you can go to other formats. So not only PDF, but you could be going to the web and to ebooks. And all of this results in a cost-effective print-ready PDF generation where you're able to recreate that PDF and edit it and recreate it multiple times in a much faster, streamlined fashion. Of course, with the team working online and having that content available in one place, that means that there's enhanced collaboration. People can work together in parallel. They can collaboratively edit the document. There's no need to email files around. Everyone's looking at the same content, and it's able to move through the publishing workflow much faster. And then for the example of Page.js specifically, since it is an open source software, it means that there's less reliance on proprietary software. So just to give you a peek of some of the kinds of designs that are possible in Page.js, I'll give you a few screenshots before Christina gives an in-depth demo. Over here, we have the start of a journal article from eLife. So on the left is the printed version. I've just circled some maths as an example of the kind of typesetting that you would expect in a journal article. And on the right here, we have that same journal article on their website. So you can see here that the benefit is that they've maintained the consistency in design, and they've also allowed the same content to be produced in multiple formats. Here's an example of what you would expect to see, images, wrapping text, inline references, all the things that you would expect to have in a journal article. Over here, we're just highlighting the same content. This is the starting page of a chapter called Sampling and Data, but it's being represented in 4 different designs. So I've just circled some differences in the design. For example, the chapter numbering, the placement of the figure caption, and you obviously can see the difference in the design for the opening image. Now, of course, this is the same content and 4 different designs. Here are the other 2. And that's one use case where you might want to have reusability. For example, you might have a different design for a geographic market, but the same applies to the opposite. You might have different content in the same design. For example, you might have a whole series of books and you want to carry through that design. Both of these options are, of course, leading to cost saving for the publisher. So that was just a sneak peek. And now I'm going to hand over to Christina, who's going to give us an in-depth demo to see how this all works together. Over to you, Christina. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Dione, for the intro. I'll start sharing my screen. And you should be able to see the Katida book builder now. Let me know if you can't see that.
Yep.
Great. So here we are in Katida. I've jumped into a sample book that I've grabbed and reworked from OpenStax. You can access this book from openstax.org/details/books/introductory business statistics separated with hyphens. So in the Katida book builder, we see divisions between front matter, body, and back matter. It's possible in Katida to add components and write directly into them, or to upload doc or docx files. For different components, you can define different file types. So for example, we've given this component a copyright page type, which allows the styling to know what sort of styles we want applied here. For example, we'd want a very different style applied to a copyright page than to a title page. I'll jump into my first chapter that I've got in this very short sample book. So in the editor, you can see how semantic markup is applied to different content. We've got our H1 here that has been marked up as an H1. We've got our subtitle for this chapter. We've got some author names, our content opener image that has a figure caption and also a space for alt text for accessibility. We've got different sections for things like learning objectives, an outline, an introduction section. If you do import a doc or docx file to Catita, the styles in that document will be carried over for things like heading levels, but more complex semantic markup like applying a focus question section can be added within Catita. In this version of Catita that we've built for the Open Education Network, we have defined styles for pedagogical elements such as case studies and worked examples, because the primary use case is for textbooks, but really any number of styles appropriate for the market could be created as semantic HTML tags. And then we have corresponding CSS in templates that allow styling to be applied. We've got short boxes like notes and reminders. We've got self-reflection activities. We've even got some poetry in this book to illustrate all the different styling available. We've got maths input with LaTeX and MathJax. And in the editor, we have all the usual sorts of tools we expect provided here by the Wax editor, as well as standard find and replace tools. And you can also go between editing and suggesting mode so that you can collaborate on documents, suggest changes, and have different permissions for different roles, such as authors, copy editors, managing editors. Going back into the book builder, we see that we have these different workflow steps for each component. The production manager can advance the workflow steps, which determine which roles can do things at different points. And Catita is configurable so that you can allow different roles, different permissions at each stage. But at any stage of the production process, it's possible to start previewing and exporting your book. Here we're using Page.js to generate a PDF preview of a book. And if I choose a template that I want, it validates the HTML and almost instantly provides me with a view of what the PDF will look like. I'll press print to open this up in a window that's a bit easier to see with that double page spread. And here we've got our automatically typeset PDF. We've got our front matter laid out, our automatically generated table of contents, meaning the page numbers always match up to where the elements start. And each of the templates has a bit of a different character, different styles. You can use different fonts, different placements of running headers and footers. As Dione mentioned, different placements of chapter numbers, figure captions. The boxes can use shading, or they can use lines delineating where boxes start and end. We've got our poetry layout, some key terms, tables being typeset. Our maths also comes through. We've got our images coming in. And I've already generated the same content, but in a few different PDF styles. Oh, I've got closed captioning in the way of my clicker. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the same content now in a different template, different page size. In less than a minute, this is all typeset. And things like the different running headers, different placement of the page numbers. Jumping down into my first chapter, we see that this is a bit of a bigger page size. So now we can make use of sidebar elements, whereas in the previous one, we had our boxes appearing, short boxes appearing in the main flow of text. Our third template has a bit of a different style as well, a different accent color. It makes use of a lot of rounded elements like shaded circles. And going into our first chapter, we see that our boxes also have rounded edges. And our longer boxes, instead of having a shading in this case, have a dotted line delineating where they start and end. Now we have running footers and the page numbers on the lower outer corner. So each of these styles is customized with the CSS applied to the single source HTML that you can use to output to PDF or EPUB or even InDesign to ICML format, which is compatible with InDesign, so that you could continue designing in InDesign or even just download your HTML. But within Katita, it is possible to typeset automatically here and go all the way from the planning stages of your book creation through authoring, copy editing, your review stages, and all the way to exports, including validation of those exports to make sure things like EPUBs are compliant with the latest standards. Again, here we have a bit of a different accent color, different use of fonts. Our H2s now have a sort of box border and shading. In this case, we have two different accent colors. And we have our exact same content, same images. Jumping into the last template that I want to show. Here again, we have a unique design for the title page and half title page. Our automatically generated table of contents and front matter. Jumping into our first chapter, we see we've got some box shading, different styling for things like subtitles and author names. We've got a bit of a bigger page size here as well. So we've got our sidebar elements, making use of all that available space. And our worked examples, self-reflection activities, all of those pedagogical elements that were marked up and had corresponding CSS. Your choice of template will likely be based on what's appropriate for the market, what's appropriate for your audience and your content, subject matter. And one reason that automatic typesetting is so efficient is that styles are defined in one place in the CSS. So going back to the first design that I output, we had this kind of squiggly, red, funky design with a smaller page size, maybe more appropriate to humanities subject matter. If I had a first book that used this design and I wanted to create a next book using the same design, but perhaps with a different accent color to make a sort of series, what I could do is in my CSS that I've got over here, which as you'll see is a very long CSS file, I can see things like the size of H1s, my accent colors, how things should interact when they both fall on a page. And there's really a lot of CSS here controlling styling. Jumping all the way down, I've got in one place in the file defined my accent colors used in this template. And here they are. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab different accent colors. I've just found these on the web. Instead of a red, I've found a green. So I'm going to paste in accent color variables for a green rather than yeah, and I've pasted it in a bit of a weird format. So I'll just read out my numbers. And now that I've changed these variables in one place, all the other places that call on these variables, for example, my H2 is using the accent color. Now that I've changed it in this one place for the color accents and the lighter color accents, I can save and choose to modify my existing template or create a new template. In this case, I'm going to create a new template because I still want my squiggly red template to exist, but I want to make a green variant as well for the next book in my series. So I'll create a new template from that. Automatically, my PDF will be generated and typeset again. And I'll just click print so we can open it up in a new tab, which will be a bit easier to view. And now we have the same book output with a green variant. All of my elements that use this accent color will now be green. And it's possible to do this for all sorts of things, like which font you call in, whether you want serif or sans serif fonts, your heading sizes, your page sizes. As you change more complex things like page sizes, you have to change some other element sizes as well. But this kind of change to CSS makes it really efficient to change something in one place of the style sheet and have everything automatically typeset. It's also really efficient as an author, an editor, production manager to jump back into your book, make a quick change to the chapter, export again, and immediately you have an updated PDF. Catita also makes it really easy to collaborate and work in parallel on your book, whether you're an author, an editor, or a production manager. And also for designers to work in parallel to add new templates or use existing templates, as I've just shown, or modify existing templates to change things like accent colors. So that's it for me for now for Catita. I'll jump over to our presentation where we're excited to hear from Karen, who will be giving OEN's perspective of textbook authoring in Catita. Karen, let me know if you want to share, otherwise I'll just hang on the slide.
Yeah, that slide is fine. Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Dione. I'm Karen Lauritsen, Senior Director in Publishing with the Open Education Network. My voice sounds a little different today. I'm getting over a rough cold, and so I appreciate your patience as it may go in and out a little bit, but I assure you I am happy to be here. For a little background, the OEN is a community of people working together to make higher ed more open, and we do that through a variety of open educational practices and strategies, including publishing. Our membership now represents more than 1,500 campuses in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. So in the time that I have with you today, I'm going to briefly offer a bit of context about the OEN and how we support OER publishing, and describe our use case and collaboration with COCO, as well as our shared goals and where we are now with the Open Textbook Planner and Catita. So first, starting with the context, the OEN's committed to supporting multiple pathways to writing and publishing open textbooks because we work with a broad community of users and institutions. The OEN is not a publisher itself, but we support authors and publishers, particularly library publishers, and everyone involved in that process. And we do that through a variety of ways. We partner with different organizations and people in the community. For example, we've partnered with LPC on professional development, and we also work with Pressbooks, Scribe, and Manifold, each of which support the community in their own way. And then, of course, our community members share their recommendations, templates, and resources, and support one another in doing the work. In the last couple of years, we've really been thinking a lot about how we can support institutions with fewer resources. And this means we've shifted our focus a little bit in the publishing space to looking at how we can provide access to publishing infrastructure. So for those institutions that may not be able to have their own instance of a publishing platform, for example, we hope to be able to provide that along with support to them so that more people at more institutions can be creating open educational resources. And so we really think that the tools we're talking about today are an important contribution to that ecosystem. That said, a caveat that I know you all already know, sometimes it's easy to equate publishing with a tool or a platform, but everyone here knows it's really a very human process, and that even the dreamiest tool in the world won't make writing a book a quick, easy, simple thing for most people. And so our work together with our members and with COCO is really focused on how we can support people who are doing the work and really take into account our shared humanity rather than just focusing on a tool or the idea of a tool doing everything. Although it can do a lot. So with that context in mind, I'm going to shift now and talk about our collaboration with COCO over the last few years. It is a use case for making beautiful books, specifically beautiful open textbooks. And while beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I've been told, I think most people in the room would agree that a beautiful book is also a pleasure to read. It presents the story or information in a consistent and engaging way that guides the reader on a journey, be that journey through time or science or space or history. And whatever the subject, most authors are very interested in structuring that journey for the reader in the best way that they can. And this is especially true for textbooks. And if you'll indulge me on a brief aside that I also think many of you can relate to. Many years ago, I worked with students and instructors in a design education program, and it was an education for me as well. And one of the things that I learned time and time again is that people are often really tempted to dismiss or denigrate beauty as superfluous or a nice extra to have. I'm sure many of you have either said or heard something along the lines of, oh, give it to a designer and they'll make it pretty. And in the case of books, having a beautiful book also means being really well designed, and being well designed means working well for the purpose at hand. So I do not see beauty as a bonus. I think we all deserve beauty, including students who are using open educational resources and including the faculty, instructors, and students who spend their time making those resources. So now that I've gotten that off my chest, we partnered with COCO to develop the Open Textbook Planner, which works with CATITA. This was an IMLS-funded project. Thank you, IMLS. And the idea was really to create a tool to support authors in developing and structuring their books before they start writing. We wanted to provide support for them to map out their book plan, and really a tool that would help authors focus on creating content and working with their subject expertise and remove some of the pressures of formatting and designing a book, which for most authors is not in their wheelhouse. In other words, something you've heard already in this presentation, we really wanted to separate content from design and create consistent textbooks through styling. So the Open Textbook Planner offers a way for authors to do that. They can select pedagogical elements that recur throughout the textbook, like you've seen in Christina and Dione's screen shares. They consistently appear through each chapter, and this really creates a consistent structure and foundation for authors so that they can focus on that content. The planner is currently available within CATITA, and as you saw from Christina, there are some set textbook styles in there. The team made several options for Open Education Network members and others to choose from. And just to turn back the clock a little bit in terms of how this tool was developed, we formed an advisory group that represented a variety of roles in OER production. They provided creative and practical ideas for how to support authors in making structured open textbooks, both in terms of workflows and tools. I saw Emma Malls was in this call earlier. If she's still here, she was one of the people in the group, and thank you, Emma, and everyone who was involved in forming the development of the Open Textbook Planner. We met in Minneapolis in December in 2019 and kicked off with Adam Hyde, the founder and manager of COCO, and he facilitated the group. He asked us, how would a tool for designing an open textbook work? How would it function? What would the design environment look like? And then following that meeting, COCO's development team worked on delivering on those requirements. And then about once a year, maybe twice a year, we got together online and tested the build, provided feedback, and answered more questions. We previewed the first iteration of the planner within Ketida at the Open Education Network Summit last summer to great interest. And right now, at this very moment, we are launching a pilot group to use the planner and Ketida for creating open textbooks. The idea is we're going to get a group together to use the tools, see how they work for their open education publishing programs. We have Jamie Whitman, our open educational practices specialist, a new role in our team, who will be our resident expert and supporting the group as we go down this road. And if you're interested in participating, please let me know. I'll put my email in the chat in a moment. But that is kind of a snapshot of our use case scenario. It's been really great working with the COCO team. They're also very community focused. This is an open source tool. And even though the IMLS grant has ended, both of our organizations are looking forward to continuing to learn from the OER publishing community and improving on these tools. We're really excited to see how people leverage Ketida and the Open Textbook Planner to create consistent, structured, and beautiful books.
Thank you, Karen, for your perspective. It's been such a pleasure working with you in the past few years on this. I think that brings us to the stage of Q&A. So I'll open it up to anyone who wants to ask a question. We have a number of people in the room who can answer the questions, so go for it.